much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, greetings again, everyone. My name is pronounced Monet Iheanacho, and I would like to welcome you to the NHTSA V3 implementation call. Today is Wednesday, November the 23rd of 2022. If you have not already done so, please update your name with your affiliation in the participation list. These meetings are recorded and shared on the NHTSA website and the YouTube channel. So you have the pleasure to share them with your teams at your leisure. We encourage your participation, and you are welcome to come off mute or use the chat feature. We will review the chat during our post-meeting debrief. We don't actually have a maintenance update today. So we're going to go ahead and look at this agenda. And I would like to first of all say, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, we at the NHTSA TAC are extremely grateful for your participation, for your support of the NHTSA standard, your participation on various subcommittees, attendance at the annual meeting, on these calls. And so we are very grateful for all of you, our stakeholders. So thank you, and we hope you have a great holiday season. We're going to go ahead and get started with Lauri Lunde. She's going to talk a little bit about the stakeholder introductions and the V3 map updates. All right, Lauri, it's on. You now have the time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Monet. And I'm going to share my screen real quickly here. We wanted to start something new today. We mentioned this a few weeks ago, and some of you have filled out a survey answering some questions. And basically what the purpose of this is that we hope to kind of learn some new things about each other, about the stakeholders that you are on this call with, some of your peers, other state data managers or other software vendors or other national stakeholders. And the purpose is to get to know each other better, but also with the end goal of really building connections that will hopefully help to lead you to collaboration and working together. And we think as you get to know each other more than just a picture or a name or hearing someone ask a question, as you get to know them, and we will also share people's contact information if they're willing, or social media contacts. And we encourage you to connect with each other outside of the call as well, and get to know people in your neighboring states or people that do what you do, maybe with a different, in a different state or with a different agency, and figure out how you can help and support each other. So that really is the goal of this today. And then also to have a little fun together. So I'm going to tell you some interesting information about someone on this call. And I want you to, if you think you know who I'm talking about, type their name into the chat, and we'll see if anyone's able to guess correctly. And then at the end, we will reveal who we're talking about. So this person, to relax or unwind, likes to restore things. Their 1911 house, they've been restoring, a 1921 Philco radio, 1959 Case tractor, and a 1966 Chevy are some things they've enjoyed restoring. And then something else they like to do to unwind, I enjoy hiking, backpacking, photography, cutting firewood. They grew up doing it and actually love it. Also gardening, foraging for food like blackberries, hazelnuts, acorns, and mushrooms. If you think you have a guest, you can type their name into the chat. Something else interesting about them is that he says, my wife and I hosted a backpacking podcast for 4 years. So if you think you know who this may be, let us know. When asked, what do you like best about their job? They said, I like being able to make forward movement on efforts that have previously been stuck. I like data architecture, the challenge of figuring out the best way to model data to fit the complex real world stuff it is intended to describe. I like seeing EMS data being used to learn and to change practices. Okay, any guesses? Let me look at the chat here and see. I don't know that, oh, here we are, okay. All right, we have Jay, Josh Legler, Chris, another guest for Josh. Anyone else have a guess? Okay, if you guessed Josh Legler, you were correct. So I will, in just a minute, I'll put Josh's contact information in the chat here. And you can reach out to him if you have questions or a point of connection or anything you'd like to ask him about. But thanks for participating, Josh. And then also I'll be posting again the link if you have not filled out a questionnaire with answering some interesting questions about yourself. Now that you see the purpose of it, hopefully you'd be willing to share that information, and we will highlight you in a week coming up at another meeting as well. All right. Thanks, Josh, for sharing that. And the next topic is mine as well. So I'll jump into that. And I need to share a different screen here. One second. All right, our next topic today is that we wanted to give an update on the version 3.5 transition, and we've had a few more states this week start to submit version 3.5 data, and we want to say a big thank you and congratulations to state number 4 in the running, which was Arizona. So thank you, Anne and her team, and all the software vendors that have been working behind the scenes as well to help make that successful. And then state number 5 that also turned green this week was Washington. And thank you to Melissa there and her team and all her hard work and the software vendors that have supported that change as well. We really appreciate it. And it's great to see this transition happening pretty smoothly on our side, and kinks being worked out along the way, but we hope it's going to get even easier for states as you continue to transition. And then I also wanted to note we have the purple states here are ones that have submitted version 3.5 documents, maybe an updated data set or schematron. And we know that they're close to being able to submit version 3.5 data too. So we'll be watching to see who is the 6th state to turn green. And then I also wanted to say, if you see anything on this map that you think needs to be updated for your state, if you could reach out to myself or Monet or anyone on our team, and we can get that updated for you if it's not correct. And finally, we wanted to announce, we'll be talking about this in the months ahead as well, but we have decided that this year we are going to have a hard closure date for our publicly released 2022 public data set. And the reason for that is we realize we have to balance the need for the timeliness of that data with holding it open long enough to have as complete of a data set as possible. And in the last few years, we've had to hold it open for states that were struggling to complete the previous year's record submission. And so we're really encouraging everyone to try to get records in by the end of the year if possible, or in the first month or so of the new year. We have decided February 17th will be the date that we will close that set and make it publicly available. And at that point, there will need to be a disclosure anytime it's shared of any states that have not submitted complete data for that year. And so we're working with software vendors and with states that may be behind, and we're hoping to get all those records caught up by February 17th. So we wanted to make you aware of that closure date and a little bit of the reason behind that as well. That is all I have today. I'll pass it back to you, Monet.
Okay, thank you, Lauri. We appreciate those updates. And that was a fun presentation on the stakeholders introductions. Okay, we're going to now turn the time over to Jen Correa. She's going to talk to us a little bit about the stakeholder modification request process. Would you like to go ahead and share your screen, Jen?
Hopefully you guys can see my screen. There should be a PowerPoint up. I have also placed into the chat box the URL for the help desk. And that is the first step in how to submit a NMSIS version change request, revision, submission, suggestion, great thought, good thought, something you think should be considered. The first step is to submit the help desk ticket. You select the general NMSIS question, and this is what the page looks like. General NMSIS question is down here at the bottom. And you would put this in as your email, your name. I'm going to blank that out. And it's a generate a request for support. And then in this additional information section, that's where you're going to put all of the information that you want us to know, you want people to consider. And if you come back later and you need to update it because you have thought of a new comment or you talked about it with someone and they brought up a good point that you want added, you can always add to the ticket later, send in an email. And so you enter the name of the requester, generate request, additional information. Any attachments are allowed to be added as well. And these are some of the things that you can include on the request. If it's an existing element name or that an element that already exists that you're trying to make a change to, you're adding a value or you want to consider an adjustment to the title or the definition that's included in the data dictionary, anything like that. Include the element name and the element number so that there's no confusion whatsoever about which one you're talking about. If it's a new element, include which section or which group that's going to fall under so that we know where you think that it would go. What's the change? Are you removing or adding values to an element? Are you trying to collect something that hasn't been collected before? Or are you trying to expand on information that's already collected, but maybe a piece of it that is not found anywhere else in NMSIS at this time? So what is the reason for the request? Are you trying to increase the value of the data that's collected, streamline it for the crews, make it a little bit easier, make it more accurate? Any information that you can include with the request will help it during the review process. And you want to include any supporting documents. Recently, we had one request that was put in and they had some articles that they attached to the request. So that just allows anyone who's looking through the tickets, because these are all available on the public site. And anyone that's looking through it could look and see, oh, okay, that's an article I might want to go and read. So you can go and look into it. And it really is that simple to have something considered. Submitting it for review does not mean necessarily that it's going to make it into the next version or the next, 2 versions. It will go through the process that is established for that. So if there's any questions, any concerns or anything like that, please feel free to ask them.
Hey, Jen, this is Samantha with ESO. Real quick, would we follow the same process if we wanted to comment on something that was already submitted?
Yes. So if you want to comment on something that's already submitted, let me go to, sorry, I did not have this open already. There we go. So this is the public version of where these tickets go. So anyone has access to this. And in fact, I will put that into the chat as well. For those of you who may not have it already, there you go. So anyone can go in and take a view at this. You open up the item. I have a little bit more access than you guys do, so you may not see all of these elements when you look at it. Just want to point that out, but you would be able to comment on it. And then any of those comments will go to the NMSIS team. They will show up on the ticket later during the review process. Thanks, Sam.
I had a couple of comments I wanted to know how to get in, so thank you.
Yep. And if you have, and if you're struggling with it, or if anyone has any issues with how to do it, always feel free to reach out and email me. I am more than happy to help. Stop sharing. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Monet, if there's no other questions.
Okay, thank you, Jen. We appreciate you sharing that information. That was extremely helpful. The next person that I would like to introduce is Miss Peggy Huddleston. She is the state data manager in the state of Missouri, and she will be providing us some information on what they're doing with their state highway traffic partners. And Miss Peggy, I will now turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Monet. Let me see here. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
While Peggy's getting that set up, is it okay if I jump in and give a little bit of history of how this came about? I'll just be quick. We visited with Peggy at a vendor conference, and she had done a presentation on how she had interfaced with traffic partners in her state. And as traffic related funding becomes available, and the need for being able to connect with those partners in your state has been highlighted. And we just wanted to share Peggy's experience. And I think she'll be a great partner for some of you who are struggling with how to connect with traffic safety data people in your state and don't quite know where to go, or you've gotten the door shut. We invited Peggy to share her experience. So I'll stop talking and turn that over to you, Peggy.
Thank you, Julianne. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Yep, sure can.
Perfect. So we are partnering with our MoDOT and our Highway Patrol. And with the Highway Patrol, I have it set up to where they get a weekly report with the dates and times for each ambulance run. That way they can complete their reports that they submit to NHTSA. So, and then with this is kind of how we have it set up. We use Image Trend, and we have 3 of their products. So it all starts with our license management system. That's where all the service and personnel information is originally entered, and then it goes to Elite. And we also have the EPCRs that come in from all the EMS services in the state, whether they manually enter or whether they use a third-party vendor. They come into Elite, and then from Elite it goes to a couple of different places. It will go to our patient registry. That way our registrars can pull the EPCRs in one location. And then it also goes to NHTSA, and then we can also send information to our stakeholders. So depending on what the information is that is being requested, depends on which product I use to pull that information from. So, like I said, with the Highway Patrol, they get a weekly report. They get it every Monday morning, and they are thrilled to death with it. My boss was at a trauma conference a couple weeks ago, and there was a presentation by the major crash investigator. And when she introduced herself to him, he just looked at her and said, "You're the reason I'm getting an extra report on my desk every week." So we took that as a compliment. So they're getting their information, and they are thrilled to death with it. MoDOT, they are thrilled to death with the information that we are able to obtain, especially from NHTSA. We're working on some initiatives with them. They've got a Road to Zero. We just did a pedestrian flyer for them, and this all ties into the highway traffic safety. Here's an example of the pedestrian flyer we did. We compared, I know it's kind of hard to read, but we compared the years, and we compared Missouri versus national, which on some of the data, it was an eye-opener, and they were just thrilled to death with it. So we are going to each month, MoDOT has a different initiative. So we are going to create another flyer. Here's some of the ones that are coming up, and then we will create a flyer for them and have them look at the data and have them incorporate it into their initiatives to see how they can move forward and work with their projects. And then here's my contact information. So it's really this is what it is in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them or help you out the best way I can.
Yes, Miss Peggy, we had a question from Ridgely Fix in Massachusetts, and she said, is the data for FARS reporting?
Is the data for, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
FARS, F-A-R-S.
Yeah, the fatal accident reporting system, is that the data, the reason why the police are requesting the EMS data, or is it just to complete their MUC variables, their reports?
It's to complete their reports. At one time, they had access to our old MARS system, but that sunset a couple years ago. And then we were able to work out an MOU with them, and now they just automatically get the information and they use it to complete their reports to NHTSA because they said they couldn't get the EMS services to answer their phone calls. So I said, I'll help you out.
Great.
Are there any additional questions for Peggy? Any comments? Anyone else doing anything similar to this?
Hey, Peggy, it's Josh Legler. For your connection from your EMS data system to your registry, stroke, trauma, et cetera, how is that data going? Is that in an NMSIS XML format that it's getting pushed to the registry?
It's all coded behind the scenes. So for my hospitals, it's in the facility data set. The hospitals have a hospital code that is issued by the state, and that hospital code is in the facility data set, which is in Elite, and then it matches up with the hospital code that's in patient registry. So as soon as we get the EPCR submitted to the state, then it will automatically send it to whichever hospital they transported that patient to. So then the registrar can log into the patient registry and pull that EPCR.
Okay, yeah, and I was just wondering what data format is used to push that to the registry, if it's a NMSIS XML file or something else.
So, and this is also cut down on, which the EMS services have really liked. They used to give out access to all the hospitals to access their vendor to pull the run sheets because they got tired of the hospitals constantly calling. So now we've kind of got it as a one-stop shop that I will give access to the patient registry to the hospitals, and they can pull all the EMS run sheets.
Peggy, this is Judy Whitfield in Texas. Does your hospital trauma use the National Trauma Data Bank format?
Yeah, the traumas use the NTDB data dictionary, and then the EMS uses the NMSIS or the NMSIS data dictionary.
Right, that's the same thing we do here in Texas. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you don't have any more other questions, I'm going to turn it back over to Monet. I'd like to thank NMSIS for giving me the opportunity to showcase what we're doing in Missouri.
Thank you so much, Miss Peggy Huddleston. We appreciate your time and putting your presentation together and sharing it here in this platform. And
Thank you.
have presentations that you would like to share, please let us know. We encourage that, the opportunity for you to share what you're doing in your states. Let me go ahead and share the agenda again. I think someone still has, no, you don't. I got it. Thank you. Okay. I did not see Mr. Chaney, Eric Chaney on the call. Is there anyone from NHTSA who's able to provide an update or an update on behalf of NHTSA? Okay. All right. At this time, I would like to let you know that we will not host a public training in December, but we are definitely gearing up for the new year. If you have any topics that you would love to see a training on, please let us know. You can submit those through our new ticketing system on the NHTSA's website, and one of the team members will have that ticket, and we'll try to put the training together based on your request. Now it's time for open forum. Are there any, excuse me, are there any topics for open forum at this time?
I was just going to ask real quick about the hot fix, if there's any updates on that for the trauma steps.
Yeah, David, thank you. Yeah, this is Clay. Yeah, thank you for that. So I'll give you a quick update. So we and have devised, Josh has done the yeoman's work here, looking at what changes would be necessary to have two new national custom elements, and then a hot fix associated, or a critical patch associated with the NHTSA standard. We presented that data to the American College of Surgeons about a week ago, I guess, maybe a week and a couple of days ago, to ensure that they would kind of approve what changes would be made to allow the 2022 trauma triage criteria to be utilized in the NHTSA standard. They had some suggestions for some changes, so those we have accepted and are working now to do the legacy data mapping, right? So that's the process that we're undergoing right now. I assume that probably in December, we will be able to review that with you folks in great detail to ensure that you have a good understanding of how that will happen. And then, yeah, the critical patch is still planned for spring. Okay.
I was going to ask one other question too. So as states are transitioning to 3.5, I want to get some clarity on the public states repository about how those schematron files are managed. So all the current states, I think, have in the master branch their 3.5 schematron files. But some states have a 3.5 branch, and some, even though they're not yet on that. And I'm wondering how that is managed, and if we could have some kind of indicator that this active schematron is a 3.5 schematron to help. That would help us, since the schematrons are kind of incompatible if they do anything with the incident patient disposition. So if it's looking for that element, it's not going to find it in a 3.5 file, and vice versa for the incident disposition group. So if we knew at a high level which XML file the schematron is expecting, that would help us dynamically generate the right one.
Yeah, David, that's a great question. Josh or Laurel, are you on and can speak a little to that?
This is Josh. If you find a schematron file that was meant for 340, in a release 350 branch in a state repository, please notify the NMSIS TAC. All the 3.5 resources should be in a release 350 branch, and 3.4 resources should be in a 3.40 branch. And then there is at the top, in the document element of a schematron file, which is the schema element, it has an attribute called schema version. And the first 3 digits, the first 5 characters of that are required to be a NMSIS version 340, 350. So when you check the content of the schematron file, it would be in that schema version attribute in the top element of the file.
All right. Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, it wasn't that I was seeing them in the wrong places. Just wanted to know when the 3.5 is active. It's because we're looking at the master branch generally for the guidance about what is the current schematron.
So we don't have any of the 3.5 schematrons synced up with the master right now. If the 3.40 is what's merged with the master.
Yeah, so that's true for I think everyone but Oregon, who has requested that 3.5 be tracking the master branch be tracking 3.5 for Oregon. But for everyone else, we were either waiting for a request or just keeping them with 3.4. We're still working on developing policy around that. And I guess if folks on the call, if any vendors have any feedback on how we should do that, I guess I would welcome it. We're trying to find something that's both helpful in working with those branches, but not overly burdensome from a maintenance perspective.
Yeah, we're thinking the same thing. So if we have to wait for the state to tell us, hey, we're doing 3.5 now, we have to flip a bunch of switches on our side. And if it could be automated in some way, that really helps us.
Yeah, so I think that's the challenge of communication here between all the different levels of EMS. So there's, we at the NHTSA TAC don't have a lot, really any contact with individual agencies. And we only really talk to the states. So I think that we're sort of in a hard place where we don't know what the agencies are doing, for example. But if there's something that you think we could do that would help you be more effective, I'd love to work on incorporating those ideas.
If the state if we had some way of indicating that this schematron is live versus not live, that would help us. So,
okay. What about in the case of a state that's going to use both versions simultaneously for a period of time?
Yeah. So if they have, we see some 3.5 branches in the public repository, but as far as we know, they're not active and they might not work. So we don't want to touch them until they're blessed or whatnot.
Yeah. So to speak to that, I personally don't publish any resources that aren't validated. So we do check all the state data sets and schematrons to assure that they're valid before we publish them. We have the option for a develop branch that I believe only Oregon has taken advantage of. So we have tried to offer an avenue for resources that are maybe not quite ready, but they're willing to share them. But generally, we would encourage states not to publish resources that they aren't ready for, everyone to consume, right? Because those repositories are public, anyone can see them. So I don't think you should find too many things that are not ready or are still in development.
Okay.
Has that been the case in the past? Okay.
They're being valid. They're definitely valid as far as XML, but whether they are, ready for production, I guess.
Yeah. So that's much harder for us to determine,
okay.
In any sort of automatic process. I guess you probably feel the same way. So I guess I don't want to take up a bunch of time on what was meant to be a short call, but if any states or vendors have any ideas on how to make that transition process better, in particular for, I guess third-party vendors where it's not the same system as the state repository. I would, welcome those ideas, because we do want to make sure that this transition is as easy as possible for everyone involved, especially because it's such a big jump from 3.4 to 3.5.
Yeah, I'll say what we did in Oregon was we created the 3.5 branch in Oregon's repository back in May and published 3.5 resources. But Oregon was not yet accepting 3.5 data. So that's why master continued to follow 3.4.0. And then a few weeks ago, we published a few updates to both the 3.4 and the 3.5 resources. And Oregon is now ready to accept 3.5 data. So we asked the NHTSA TAC to switch the master branch to follow 3.5 as our indication that the state's ready to actually receive 3.5 data. That was the approach we use.
Okay. So it's, but and so I'm trying to see. So Arizona, their master branch right now is 3.4. There is their schematron file, schema version 3.4.0. Colorado and Kansas are 3.5.0, and then South Dakota, Washington are still 3.4.0.2. So what do they need to do maybe to have their 3.5.0 become the master version, or yes.
Yeah, they
So
could
I get
ask
what
the
you're
NHTSA TAC to switch master over to follow 3.5.0.
And they can only have one in master.
Yeah. Each branch is just at a particular commit and has a commit history. And so if master is following 3.5.0, it simply means that master and release 3.5.0 are both pointing to the same commit as each other.
Okay.
Yeah, so the way we've structured this now, we're waiting for states to ask if they want to switch their master branch to track release 3.5.0. And if we could agree on an automated setup for, at which point does the NHTSA TAC automatically change master to track release 3.5.0, that could be an option. But in the absence of that, we sort of have to wait for direction. We're hosting these repositories, but we don't own the content in them. We're not responsible for the content in them. We didn't create it. We didn't review anyone's schematron rules to ensure that they're the best rules. So from our perspective, we end up having to take a bit of a hands-off approach to making those sorts of decisions on behalf of states. But perhaps if everyone wanted to agree that, the point at which a state goes green on 3.5 was the point at which their repository should change to have master track release 3.5, that could be something that we do automatically at that point.
Yeah, Laurel, that's a great idea. I think we could revisit our onboarding process, Lauri, and just make sure that that's is a topic that we need to talk to the states about, right? And if they want to make that switch in the what the master repository is a link to, or whether they just want us to go ahead and do that when there's resources available. So that'd be a good thing to visit in our onboarding process for us.
Okay. Yes. I see that there might be some pitfalls there. Just whether they want that, because we just want to know, when they're ready for 3.5, we want to start giving them 3.5, but they may think that the majority of the people in their state are still on 3.4 and they're going to transition slowly. So I guess there's some nebulousness there, and just how, are you able to accept 3.5? Is the schematron rules, ready for 3.5? I think is what we want to know. Yeah.
Yeah, David, it's a great point. It's a great point. Let us I'll go back and look at our onboarding process and see if we're covering that well enough, and whether we need to tighten up some of those decisions. Laurel's idea too, right, for us to just have a policy of when to switch, it may also be the best approach, because that would get at a lot of that murkiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, David, thank you. Yeah, point well taken. We'll work on that. Thank you for that.
Possibly even more generally, does every state have a schematron, or are there ones that maybe don't?
I'm not 100% certain, but I'm 99% sure that every state has a schematron.
Okay. So that might be good enough then. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, David, so much for the question. Excellent discussion. Are there any additional open forum topics at this time? Okay, you all know how to get in touch with us. Please reach out if you have any additional things come up that we need to address. We will like to let you know that our next meeting is December the 14th, normal time, which is 11 a.m. to 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Please have a great holiday, safe travels for those of you who are traveling. Thank you for attending. We appreciate your time. And we ask now that you enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good day, everyone.